everybody. Welcome back to Passions Podcast. I'm your regular host, LeTara, here back again with Stephen Wentzel.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to the show. You excited to talk about episodes 431 through 435?
Oh my gosh, it's great to be talking about passions again.
This week honestly, it was like a good recap week. There's things that happened, and there was like a lot of recap as there always is, but I do feel like the recap was a little more enjoyable than it is sometimes at other times. Like I feel like there was a little bit more like fun to it. So let's jump right in. We're going to start out with these fated couples, Ethan and Teresa. Ethan, who used to be a crane, is no longer a crane. Going through his little identity crisis right now. So let's talk about them and talk about Chad and Whitney and what's going on with them. So we pick up with Ethan and Teresa, and they're telling Chad and Whitney like that we're planning. They're like, we're getting married, and Whitney and Chad are like, yeah, we literally knew this. We've known this for weeks. Like, why? Duh. Basically, I think Whitney actually goes like, yeah, duh, and and Ethan and Teresa are just like, well, we're just getting married as soon as possible now. Like we've been engaged, but now it's as soon as again, the timeline on this is like insane.
It's unfathomable almost.
Yeah, well, it is unfathomable. I can't wrap my head around it. I've been saying that for 100 episodes of this podcast. I can't get my head around the timeline of anything. But anyway, Ethan, in the middle of like this happy moment, Ethan like walks. Oh, they're at the book cafe, by the way. Ethan like walks across the book cafe, and there are so many newspapers with the headline like Ethan Crane, but Crane is crossed out.
Yes, it is.
And there's like different publications with like the same headline. And he gets real sad. Poor thing. Poor thing. He is really going through it. I get it though. Like this is rough on Ethan. So he sees the newspapers, and while he's moping about, Chad questions Teresa about like coming clean to Ethan about the fact that she knew he wasn't a crane before everybody else found out. And he tells her secrets will land you where the Bennett's marriage is. Ooh. Like, look where Sam and Grace are right now. That's what secrets have done to their marriage, and that's what's going to happen in your marriage. And she's like, no, once we're married, I'll tell him. What?
Terrible idea, Teresa.
Once we get married, he'll be trapped. So I'll tell him once we're married. And Chad's like, okay, whatever. Then Ethan and Teresa talk a little bit after he has his moment. You know, he comes back a little sad. I think Chad and Whitney go off to get like coffee. I don't know. But Ethan and Teresa like sit down to talk about like their life, and he says he's like concerned about the fact that he doesn't have a job anymore. Like, how are they gonna live? Like, legitimate concerns for sure.
So, dude,
yeah. But Teresa tells him, "We'll live on love." See, that's how you know she's a teenager and shouldn't be getting married. You're a child.
Yes, absolutely. That's something that like you think like a rich person would say, we'll make it on love. But it's like, girl, where have you been?
Can't live on love alone. You can't eat love.
Yeah.
Love doesn't keep you warm at night. I mean, like a heater or a blanket. Like a body might, but like you need a roof over your head. Bless her little heart. But I guess she's always been poor, so she's like, whatever, we'll be poor.
Yeah.
And she's no stranger to struggle, I guess. So all we need is love, and we can. And she's like, and we can live in my bedroom at my mom's house. Like,
oh no, red flag alert! Holy moly!
I mean, she's a child. She's a kid.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right about that. Yeah.
she's a kid with no, she's an unemployed kid because I think she lost her job at the Crane Mansion. Am I right? I think she lost that job. I think that's done and over with.
Yeah, I think that conflict
Right?
just ran its course there. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember because I remember there was like a whole thing about her not losing her job, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe she does still work for Ivy. I think she does actually. So she's got a job. He's the one that's unemployed.
How
uh
the
so
turn.
anyway, he's like, yeah, our love is gonna last forever because we love each other and there are no secrets between us, there's no lies between us. And I mean, they're just alluding to the fact that Ethan's gonna be really, really upset once this secret does come out, which we know comes out much later. Well, not that much later, but later. And even when it does come out, it comes out wrong because Teresa sure knew that he was a crane or wasn't a crane, but she didn't know, she didn't send the stuff to the tabloids or anything, right? So like I just don't like the way this all eventually plays out. But anyway, uh at one point they're talking about a honeymoon. She's like, what can we do for a honeymoon? And he's like, oh, I can't even think about a honeymoon right now because again, I'm unemployed. And Whitney and Chad come back and Whitney's like, I've got a great idea. You guys can honeymoon at my parents' lake house. It's not as nice as the Crane cabin, but it's pretty nice. But let me just say, we saw the Crane cabin, I want to say like 300 episodes ago. It's not a nice place. Like the Crane cabin is not very nice to me anyway, like based on what I
Not
saw.
very luxurious, no.
No, it's very, I mean, it's rustic, I guess you could call it
Sure,
rustic.
but like by any stretch of the imagination, it's not a rich person's cabin.
No, it's not some kind of luxury retreat or resort or anything. So I mean, I hope the Russell's lake house is at least that nice. Like I don't want to honeymoon any place less nice than that Crane cabin. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, all that happens. Then Ethan decides he needs to look at a bunch of magazines to find out to get a job. I do not understand this. I don't understand what happened here. He went over to the magazine rack, grabbed a bunch of magazines, told Chad that he was like, "Yeah, I got to start looking for new work in the magazine."
In Vogue and Vanity Fair and
Like
Time.
this man doesn't even know where to look for job listings.
No.
He's picking up stacks of magazines. And Chad was like, "Hey, hey man, you got the money to pay for all of those?" And it reminded me of, I've been rewatching Arrested Development, and it reminded me of when Lucille Bluth says to Michael Bluth says, it's a banana, Michael. How much could it cost? $10? Because Ethan really was like, I don't know, $10,
So
50, like he
out of
had
touch
no
with reality
clue
there. Yeah.
how much it was going to cost for those magazines. And Chad was like, yeah, that's like a solid $50-$60 worth of magazines. Like, do
Yeah.
you have
Like
that kind of
be
money to
lucky to
drop on
bring
just
that much home
magazines?
in a day at the book cafe.
Right, like, do you have that much money to drop on magazines? And so Ethan then says to him, well, I've never really looked at prices before because as a crane you just charge everything. Cranes don't carry cash. That cracked me up. I
Cranes
didn't
carry cash.
Cranes don't carry cash, baby. We don't carry cash. That's just how rich we are. We never have money on us. Cranes don't carry cash, so he didn't have $50 to spend.
Cranes carry cash, and money can't buy you class.
Money can't buy you class. Oh, money can't
Can't
buy you
buy you
class.
class.
Elegance is
Elegance is
love,
good, my
my
friend.
friend.
Oh my.
I saw a video of Luann doing her quote cabaret,
Yes.
and it was like a TikTok, and the caption was like, imagine having this amount of uh like confidence to charge people $100 for these very mediocre covers. And it was so bad. I feel like she was singing like Disco Inferno. It was like, burn, baby, burn. Disco Inferno. She's
Oh,
so
honey, no.
she's so terrible. Oh,
Oh,
but
no.
I do love myself a good housewives single.
Oh,
Like
oh yes.
that
On,
one.
I still listen to "On Display" by Melissa Gorga.
I was
That's
just about to say that's one of my favorites. On display, on display, on
On
display,
Display.
each and every day, every
Every
day,
day,
every
every
day.
day. It's so good. And you know what's so funny? This is really cringeworthy. But when I'm coming to New York in October, I'm going to see Joe Gorga do comedy on Broadway. I know.
Yikes.
Yikes is right. But like,
I
whatever.
mean, it's your money. Do what you want to do with your money. But that's just not how I would spend my money. I'm just being Chad. I'm being the Chad to your Ethan right now.
No, yeah, no, right? I'm like, I'm trying to spend season 4 New Jersey money, but it's not.
Oh my God, Joe Gorga. Ugh. Oh,
Yeah.
we're not going to talk about the housewives, but I do want to say I was following the drama of Teresa's wedding very closely, and I cannot
Mm.
wait to see it all play out on the new season. Anyway, moving on to these cranes, or not cranes. They're not cranes. Moving on to these not cranes. So Ethan at one point says, I don't have a job anymore, but I do need to go back to Crane Industries and clean out my desk and clean out my office. And he invites everybody to go along with him to Crane Industries. He's like, why the hell not? Fuck it. What I have to lose? Not literally nothing. He has nothing left in the world. So they go to the Crane Industries and they see the family archives, and Teresa's like drawn to this room and she's like, what's in there? And he tells her, oh, it's the Crane archives. And this is important because these archives come up many, many times in these episodes, right? Um, and he says, only Alistair, my dad, and myself have access to that room. It's where all the important Crane papers are kept and all the Crane secrets. And she's like, can we take a look inside? And he's like, I don't see why not. Again, nothing left to lose. So he just swipes his card. They look in, and then close it back up. They don't go in or anything. But after Ethan finishes cleaning out his office, he takes his key card, his access card, and he just throws it in the trash. He says, well, I guess I don't need this anymore. And he throws it in the trash, which that's not a secure place I guess he doesn't care. Why should he care? I wouldn't care either, actually. Here, take your shit. I don't give a fuck if somebody finds it and uses it. But he throws his key card in the trash. Teresa walks behind him and pulls it out of the garbage can and tells Whitney he might want it as a souvenir someday. Like, that's a weird kind of souvenir to take.
No kidding. Yeah. It's like keeping your health card or something.
Right. Like, I just don't know that I can believe that she didn't have any kind of ulterior motive in pulling that out of there.
Right? Like, it's not even his family. Like, what's the souvenir? The reminder of the lifelong betrayal of your,
Right.
like, parentage, I guess.
Yeah, it's an access card. So, like, I don't know. It just didn't seem all the way on the up and up to me. But she pulled it out. Whitney was like, bitch, you need to throw that back in the trash. You just stop it. You're being so deceptive. And Teresa's like, no, he might want it one day. Okay, sure, girl. Sure. And then they leave. So let's talk about they all go back to the book cafe. Real quick, let's talk about Chad and Whitney and what's going on with Chad and Whitney. Basically, Chad has had his DNA. Chad has had his DNA like tested. I still don't understand this pseudoscience that they have made up for DNA testing. But anyway, they've got a sample of his DNA at the hospital, and they're running all kinds of tests. And it is explained to us at first as if they took the DNA sample, and what's taking so long is they're running his DNA against all of these other people in Harmony whose DNA has been taken. Like, who gives DNA voluntarily at a hospital? oh God, this just doesn't make any sense. None, zero, none whatsoever. But I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna let it ride. So Chad is in the process of waiting for these DNA results, right? Like, see if somebody in Harmony is one or more of his parents, right? But he starts talking to Whitney and saying, now that I see how things have turned out for Ethan, I don't know that I really want to know who my parents are. Like, what if my dad's a racist, like Crystal said? Remember Crystal, y'all? Yes. Remember poor Crystal? Justice for Crystal, first of all. Before she died, she told Chad that basically his dad was a racist and a bigot. So he's like, well, maybe what if she was right and they just didn't want me? And he's worried about all these things. And Whitney keeps like telling him, no, you need to learn about your family. You owe it to yourself, but you owe it to the woman you might one day marry.
Oh my goodness gracious. What a stretch, Whitney.
You owe it to the woman you may one day marry. And then she also says you owe it to, any future children you may have. They deserve to know their grandparents. Like, okay. I am on Whitney's side 100%. I think like you've been on this journey, you're so close to some kind of information. You should follow through on that. On the other hand, it was just like weird for her to be like, you owe it to your future wife. Why? No, I don't. But I'm with Whitney. Anyway, eventually Chad is like, yeah, you're right. I should do it. So Eve shows up after a whole lot of other shit. Eve is going through some shit these episodes, which we are going to get to. Eve shows up to the book cafe, tells Chad that like the results are ready. So they go to the hospital, and then TC comes to the hospital too to be there for like moral support. They go to the hospital. They go into this like computer room, the DNA computer room, and Eve Russell pulls out a fucking floppy disk and is like, this floppy disk has all of the DNA of every person in Harmony on a floppy disk. I don't know if y'all remember, but floppy disks literally held like 16 megabytes. Like they didn't hold any information. I could put like 3 Word documents on it.
Yeah.
And those could only have like 2 pages a piece. 6 pages. 6 pages of documents you could put on a floppy disk. They didn't hold shit. But you're going to try and tell me that this floppy disk has the DNA like not material, I don't know, like data, DNA data for every citizen in Harmony. Okay.
Well, all right. What you said, the last time I was on talking about the internet and how the writers just didn't understand how email worked. And you know what? They just don't understand, how much or how little data you can get on one of those floppy disks.
They didn't understand shit. So she takes this one floppy disk and then she has another floppy disk. And she's like, I got another floppy disk. And this floppy disk has your DNA data on it. And we're going to put them both into the computer and we're going to run them through the computer and see if there's any matches, basically. Again, the science is so absurd. But they put the discs in the computer, which this computer, I guess, has 2 floppy disk drives. They put the discs in the computer and they stand there and she's like, this is the easy part. This will take no time, blah, blah, blah. But then it takes forever and we get no answers in these episodes at all. So that's where our little couples are. All right. So let's move on to Sheridan and Luis, because they come into this story. They actually come into the fated couple stuff a little bit. So obviously at the top of this story, it's Julian and Alistair plotting to break up Sheridan and Luis. Julian and Alistair always on the phone. Oh my God, they were on the phone so much in these episodes. So much. I wonder, I would like to talk to Ben Masters and ask him what it was like to have no scene partner a lot because he's
Right?
just on the phone. And I imagine there's just like maybe somebody reading lines to him, or maybe not. Maybe he just was like saying his lines, waiting, saying his lines, waiting.
Yeah.
I wonder how that worked. And I mean, he does a wonderful job, but I feel like that would be really tough. That so many of your scenes are just you on the phone. And I mean, this other guy too, who plays Alistair, what are you doing? But at least you never see his face. He's just talking. And I think I don't know, but it almost seems like it's a voiceover sometimes because he's moving his hands, but it doesn't make sense. Do you ever notice that the hand gestures don't
Nearly ever
match?
matches. Yeah.
Yeah, the hand gestures, they don't match what he's like saying in his voice inflection sometimes. So I don't know. I just wonder how this all was produced. But anyway, Julian and Alice are talking about breaking up Shawise. Julian asks, why don't we just play that hypnosis tape like you were planning to do? Why don't we just give that to Luis? Like, that was the plan, like, I don't know, 15 minutes ago. Why can't we continue with that plan? And Alistair says, see, this is why I passed you over as heir for Crane Industries, because you're such an idiot. You don't even understand. We can't take any more bad publicity right now. Okay, fair. I don't think he's wrong. Y'all got a lot of, I saw all those newspapers with Crane crossed out at the book cafe. Y'all can't afford any more bad publicity. That's for sure.
No, it's
So,
true. But at the same time, he says, it'll take one more scandal for the Cranes to crash the stock market. And it's like, okay, all right. The entire economy of the United States rests in your hands.
well, at one point in these episodes, like it's interesting how they write the Cranes, like the lore around the Cranes, because at one point in these episodes, Sheridan says something about the Cranes being the richest, most powerful family in the world.
Imagine.
I mean, y'all are the richest, most powerful powerful family in the world. But that's y'all's cabin. Like, again, the cabin is not very nice.
That's your cabin.
The mansion has 3 rooms tops.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they can't keep anybody out of their house. They have terrible security. Like, really, there's always people just barging into this mansion. I don't know. What are y'all doing? Where's the money go? Where's the money going? The richest family in the world is what Sheridan says. So, all right, girl. But yeah, they if they are the richest family in the world, I guess they could have that much pull on the stock market, but it doesn't seem likely. They're just so far up their own asses.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Alistair even tells Julian at one point that, if he doesn't follow through on their plan to get rid of Sheridan and Luis, then he'll be living in the YMCA with Ethan.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I wrote that down too. You'll find yourself living at the YMCA.
Okay.
Oh, so Julian, like, as always, assures Alistair there's nothing for Luis to find. There's no way he'll find anything on the Crane estate. Everything is locked away in the Crane family archives, and only you and I have access to the archives. Well, Alice is like, yeah, well, what if he finds a way into the archives? Like, we just start foreshadowing really, really heavily at this point. So meanwhile, Luis and Sheridan, they're talking about Charity, who has like Charity's disappeared to everybody else outside of the Hell House right now. Charity has disappeared, right? Like, she's just like walked off somewhere. But Luis tells Sheridan that Father Lonergan said that Charity was like taken by evil. And then Sheridan starts saying, well, maybe evil has come to Harmony. Like, look at everything that's happened tonight. And yeah, let's run down what did happen tonight. So much has happened tonight. Ethan found out he wasn't a crane. So all of that whole thing happened tonight. All the hell stuff happening at the house at the Bennett home is happening and has happened tonight. And there was, what else happened?
Well, Grace fell
Yeah,
down.
Grace lost her baby. That whole thing came. Yeah, a lot has happened in this one hellish night. So I mean, it's not that far fetched that evil has come to Harmony, like Father Lonigan says. But Luis is like, no, I don't believe in that. Even though he's like a devout like Catholic or whatever, they go to Father Lonigan's church. He preaches all this kind of stuff. I imagine. Seem like they would all believe in it, but it seems like they're not really true believers. They should be shunned. Shun the non-believers. Shun. But anyway, they're talking about evil coming to Harmony. Sheridan starts worrying that maybe the evil will come and break them up, and she's just worried about evil ruining her relationship. And Luis says something to her that I was like, I fully agree with Luis to an extent, which is, he says, it's not evil that's like ruining people's lives, it's people's bad decisions. He's like, Sam didn't tell Grace about Ivy. That's his choice. That was his bad decision. And Ivy didn't tell Ethan about his real father. That's her choice. That's her bad decision. Like, these things happened because people made bad choices. With the exception of Charity, whom he says, well, she just, we know she sleepwalks. That's just a thing we know about her. They need to get this baby some help. They really need to get Charity some help.
Man, no
like, if she sleepwalks like that, I don't know. Anyway. So anyway, they talk about that they don't have any secrets between them. The one secret they did maybe have isn't a real secret. Whatever. We know that Sheridan thought that maybe she killed Martin Fitzgerald, but then in the hypnosis, she did admit to it, but then Eve lied and said that it was all some I don't know, she made up some nonsense. And so now Sheridan feels like she's not a murderess anymore. A murderess no more. So that's where they are. Luis like renews his vow to like prove that the Cranes had something to do with his family or his dad's disappearance. And he wonders about where his papa is. And then Sheridan's like, I know. This was such a reach. This was such a stretch. Sheridan is like, I know who can help us figure out what happened to your father. My mother. And Luis is like, oh, but didn't she die like 20 years ago? And she's like, yes, she did die, but she left me her diaries in her will. And I was so young at the time that they were locked away for safekeeping. And so she's like, let's go find Julian and figure out where those diaries are. So they go to find Julian and asks him about the diaries. He feigns ignorance. Like, I don't know. And then when Sheridan's like, well, I'll just ask the family lawyer, which is Ethan not their family lawyer?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. That adds a whole other element to the scandal here.
Is Ethan not their family lawyer? Like, I guess they probably, they are the richest, most powerful family in the world, so they probably have a team of attorneys, right?
Yeah, they probably have a counsel.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I just would imagine that he was like the closest. Well, yeah. So she says she'll ask the family lawyer, and then Julian's like, oh, actually, I do know where they are. Or actually, no, he's like, no, I'll talk to them. Don't you worry about it. I'll take care of it. But of course, Sheridan's smart. She's like, no, I will take care of it. And then she remembers, she's like, oh, I know where they are. They're in the Crane family archives. Let me into the Crane family archives. And Julian refuses. He's like, no, can't do it. You're not allowed in there. Only boys only. Only boys allowed. No girls allowed in the Crane family archives. Basically, is what he tells her. Like, me, Alistair, and that boy that is not my son. What's his name? Ethan. Ethan. We're allowed, but not you. So she has hit a dead end. She knows where they are, but she can't get them. And so they end up going to the book cafe, Luis and Sheridan going to the book cafe, where they run into Teresa and Ethan, who luckily have just come from the Crane archives. And Sheridan brings Ethan up to speed on what's going on. And he says, "Oh man, I wish you would have caught me beforehand because I just came from there." And she's like, "Oh, that's awesome. Can I get your key?" Basically, he's like, "I threw it away." And then he tells her, "But I don't know that if I did have it, that I would give it to you." Yikes. Like, what the fuck do you care, Ethan? What do you care?
Right. And at this point, she is more entitled. She is much more entitled to that information and those documents than you are.
Absolutely. She's an actual Crane. And she's still a woman.
Yeah.
She's still a woman. Oh God. It's crazy. Oh, so sexist. They're so awful, so misogynistic. I hate Alistair so much. Um, but Ethan does give her a reason. He says, I don't know that I would give you the key because I don't want you going against Alistair and Julian, because I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to lose your family. Like, they might turn you out the same way they did me. And it hurts more than you can ever imagine. Like, even though we weren't necessarily all that close, it's the only family I've ever had, and now I have no family, and I don't want the same thing to happen to you. Which, okay, but Sheridan doesn't give a fuck about that. Give her the key. She doesn't, for Sheridan, you are her family. Like, you're the only Crane she really truly cared. I think she cares about Julian and Alistair to a certain extent, but Ethan is the only one she had like a legitimate, genuine relationship with.
Yes.
And he's not even a Crane anymore, so she's not going to lose that relationship with him. I think, and she kind of says as much. She says, you and Luis mean everything to me, and I want to help Luis with this right now, and this is what's important to me. And basically saying, like, you're my family, Luis is my family, and if Julian and Alistair want to continue being my family, fine, but like, I'm not too pressed about it either. you know so she really wants the key. He tells her, well, it doesn't matter because I don't have it. But then Teresa finds out about all of this, and she, on an aside, privately tells Ethan, "Hey man, by the way, I actually took this key card from the from the trash can because I thought you might want it as a souvenir one day. So actually you can help Sheridan if you want to, but it's totally up to you." And eventually, I'm not going to do the whole back and forth. Eventually, Sheridan ends up with the key card. And they go back to Crane Industries, and they make their way into the archives. Luis and Sheridan do. And they don't find anything. That's kind of where we ended. They have some run-ins with Julian a little bit, like avoiding him, with trying not to get caught and everything. They have a run-in with security, but then security's like, "Oh my gosh, Mrs. Crane or Miss Crane, I'm so sorry. We're so sorry. Please don't tell your brother that we manhandled you." And she's like, "We can keep this between us. Like, just don't tell my brother I was here." So that's like where we ended with them this week, right? Where do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just about Julian. He's playing golf by himself in the solarium, and he's talking to Alistair on the phone. And Alistair says, "I suggest you spend less time with your putter and more on saving your family's hides." And then Alistair threatens him and says, "I'll see to it that you'll work at the general store on Crane Industries properties in Siberia." And
Yeah.
like, damn, like, you really have no devotion as a father to your children. They're just
Nothing.
they're just leverage in your life. And so Julian says, "Oh, please, no, father. You know how I hate the cold." And Alistair says, "And little Julian hates the cold even more. Toes aren't the only thing you could lose to frostbite."
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought up Julian and Alistair again, because there is something else I want to add. There's a point. So, like I said, Julian and Alistair are on the phone a lot these episodes, like a ton. It's crazy. And there's like several different phone calls. In one phone call, that was one phone call. In another phone call, uh Alistair calls and immediately just starts tearing Julian down and calling him just like useless and just like a waste of space, just really tearing him down. And he says if Sheridan gets her hands on those diaries, it could prove fatal for the family, or for Crane Industries, but also for you, Julian. And Julian says, "Are you saying you would kill me, father? Are you threatening to kill your own son?" And Alistair says, "Just keep Sheridan away from those diaries and you'll never have to find out." Like, that's fucked up. But you know what? Again, in like episode 5, Alistair was talking about killing Sheridan. I will never forget about that. He in like episode 5, he was like, "If we gotta kill her, we gotta kill her." If I gotta kill her, I gotta kill her. And that's how he feels. Like you said, his kids they mean nothing to him. And at one point, also, another phone call, Julian's like on the phone with him on the elevator, headed to the archives to like take care of the things that he's supposed to be taking care of. And uh once again, Alistair is just ripping into him with insults. And Julian like stands up for himself. He's like, "That's enough," you know? But it doesn't last long. It doesn't last long. Julian is an abused son. He's been abused by his father. Uh he's horrible and a monster, but he's a product of his environments, truly. And I think
Uh,
I've probably said this a bunch of times, but like, he was raised by Alistair. Sheridan was sent away. And in some ways that was good, so much better for her. And in a couple of, and I just, to not have to be berated, belittled, and on a daily basis, multiple times a day, like, and just torn down multiple times a day. Like, again, these 5 episodes took place over what, an hour maybe? And Alistair called Julian like 10 times and called him a piece of shit.
yeah, it was just, oh, and another thing. Oh, and another thing.
By the way, you suck. By the way, I actually hate you. But by the way, and the thing is, Julian just keeps picking up the phone. It's like, you know who it is. Nobody else ever calls you. You don't have any friends. So that's it for Shuis, I believe. You have anything else to add?
No, that's good for now.
Okay. So now we're going to take a little break, and I'm going to say thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you to Munashe, Marcus, Erica, Brelyn, Lisa, Zach, Sid, Sarana, Heather, Randall, Ashley, Shannon, Hannah, Camelia, Amanda, Samantha, Amy, Jeanette, Eric, Jamie, Fantasia, and Sean. Thank you all so very, very much for being patrons. I literally could not do this without you. And if anybody out there listening, watching, wants to become a patron, just go over to patreon.com/passions podcast and check out the different tiers for what you want. So
You're really getting a community on there.
yeah, it's nice. We do watch parties, it's we do different things every month. But it's really fun to kind of talk about passions with people, and like, because it's not something that I can talk about with like most people. It's like,
Sure.
it's such a niche. It's such a Such a
It
very
is.
niche.
And, you can, I'll say to my coworkers, like, do you remember Passions? And they'll be like, oh, the witch and the doll. But you can't really, it doesn't really go much further than that. And fair enough, but there's so much more to Passions
Yeah.
than to me.
And I feel like the people who really watched Passions and the people who like listen to the podcast have such like a love and like such a nostalgic memory of it that is like so important, not super important in my life or anything, but it is an important like part of my coming of age, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. In a really weird way, like, Passions is part of my, like, adolescent development.
Yeah.
Hopefully with what not to do, but like, but it was there, and I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And it even made my little like mantra through like junior, middle, and high school was follow your passions. And
Yeah, no man. I I was all about Passions, Days of Our Lives, and Degrassi. Those are like my shows.
Degrassi, the Next Generation. I'm still not over some of the things that happened on that show.
JT,
Yeah, we were thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Liberty Van Zant being left a widow, like
Yeah.
a teenage widow with her baby. Like, Jesus.
But also, it's so sad. I didn't really watch Days of Our Lives. I watch General Hospital on occasion now. It's not what it once was, but such a shame that Days is leaving television.
It is? I didn't
It
know
really
that.
came out of left field. You
I
didn't
didn't
know that?
know that. No.
Oh wow! So yeah, September 9th is the last. It's moving to Peacock. It's moving to the streaming service exclusively. So you'll have to pay to watch it now.
I got Peacock. That's no problem. I mean,
Cool.
the thing is, I was watching Days of Our Lives. I want to say about a year ago, I started like watching it again. Like, and like you just said about General Hospital, it's just like not what it once was. And I think with the way TVs are like so much better now, the quality of the quality of like the visual of television is so much better now that the sets just look so horrible and cheap, and the lighting is way too bright. Like it's I don't know. But every time Sammy comes back, I'm like, Sammy's coming back. I gotta watch some Days of Our Lives, see my girl. Sammy's my girl. I feel about Sammy the same way I feel about Teresa.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Sammy's horrible though. Horrible. Love her. Fucking love her. She's awful. She just does she just does what she needs to do to get what she wants. She manifests. She manifests the same way Teresa does, but she takes a few more actions that are kind of hideous. But anyway, Sammy's not even bad anymore. She just used to be. Sammy's actually a good person now. Anyway, we're not talking about days. We're way off track. Let's get back to Passions. We're talking about troubled marriages now. Okay, y'all, it's about to get dark and sad for a second. Poor Grace. Poor Grace. Grace and Sam are driving home from the hospital because Grace has lost her baby. She should still be at the hospital, but she was adamant that she had a bad feeling that something horrible was happening at her house. Something horrible was happening to her children. She's like, take me home now. I need to go home. So on this drive home, Sam is like acting like nothing ever happened. He's like, maybe I'll bake those cookies for you you like so much. And, he's just saying stuff as if this woman didn't just suffer one of the greatest losses a person can suffer outside of losing a child that you have given birth to.
Absolutely.
Right? And on top of that, she's got this horrible gnawing feeling that something else bad is about to happen. Something else bad is happening to her other children right now at her home. And this man is like talking to her about like, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Like, as if nothing ever happened.
Totally. She also lost her estranged twin sister in a fire, like, less than 2 years ago. So, like,
yeah.
Annoying as Grace might be, she's going through it.
She really is. And he then says to her, because Grace firmly tells him, like, stop it. Stop acting like nothing ever happened. Stop. And she's in a way, I feel like she's like, stop talking to me. Just stop, basically. And he says to her that he wants to have a conversation. He's like, well, I want to have a conversation. Like, we need to talk. And she says, I don't want to talk. I don't want to have a conversation. And she says, everything is different now. And then listen, Sam is not doing it for me this week. Sam ain't doing it. He hasn't been doing it for me for a while, actually. Sam is not doing it for me this week. He says to her, well, I still love you. Do you still love me? Sir, I need a moment. Like, I just need a beat. Give me a beat, please. I just lost a baby because of, in my mind, because of you, right? I just found out this insane news that you have a whole ass son with Ivy Crane, who's been in my face all year long, pretending like she doesn't know you. I like my whole life, my whole worldview just shifted. What I thought I had, I don't have. So no, don't tell me you love me right now and then ask me, do I still love you? Right now is not the time to ask me a question like that, because you're not gonna like the answer. I'm talking as LeTara, but like you're not gonna like the answer.
No, it's true
Right
though.
now.
And it's so funny. I have to just say that when they pull up to the house in the car, Grace says to Sam, "Our house is like our marriage. On the outside, it's fine, but on the inside, it's all a sham and filled with lies and deceit."
The
it's
drama.
Like, damn.
The drama. Yes, honey. So they're in this car having this conversation.
Sorry, one more thing.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. And another thing, no, but Sam also saying, like, it'll be fine if you'll let us be. Like, are you serious?
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. He's like telling her, if you let us be. It's like, again, she lost that baby like 12 hours ago. I really need you to shut the fuck up. To be honest, Grace is she's giving him a lot of grace. She's being a lot nicer to him than I could ever have been.
Oh, absolutely.
I never ever. I would have gotten a cab home. Yes. Like, or maybe I would have just taken the car myself. I just taken the keys and gone and left his ass at the hospital. Actually, that's probably what I would have done. You take a cab home. Call TC. Call Ivy. Call your son. Call Ethan. Maybe he'll drop you off. Except Ethan probably doesn't have a car anymore. That was probably a Crane. That was probably didn't belong to him.
He had to give Teresa's engagement ring back.
Right. So I'm sure he had to give like his car back. Anyway, so he tells her the same old. I didn't tell you about Ivy because I wanted to protect you. And she says, it doesn't matter. It's done. I don't want to talk about it. And he's like, don't shut me out like this. And she says that she needs time to think and time with her children, and she just wants to get home, right? So, like you said, they pull up to the house, and she says the thing about the house looking fine on the outside, but on the inside, something very horrible is happening. And so they go inside. So this is where magic and troubled marriages kind of become intertwined. We're gonna talk a little bit about the magic, but I'm gonna hold off on most of it for when we really get into it. So they go inside, and Sam and Grace rush in because they hear Miguel is screaming. She's like, I told you something was wrong. And so they run inside the house, and they come into this scene, and they ask what the hell happened in there. And Father Lonigan is like, hell happened here. Because I think maybe Sam says, what the hell happened in here? And Father Lonigan says, you're exactly right. Hell happened in here. Jesus, what a great line. Hell happened in here, which it did. At this point, I think hell has closed up. This is a point where Charity has been pulled to hell. The hell hole in the hell house has closed up. So there's no evidence that hell happened in there. But everybody who was in the room saw hell, right? And so then TC and Eve show up, and Miguel brings them up to speed about all of the hell stuff. At one point, and TC ain't shit for this. TC ain't shit. I'm listen. Again, I told y'all, I said that I was gonna not do all the magic right now, but I do want to say this one thing. At one point, after Miguel brings TC and Eve up to speed about hell and all the stuff that happened, he looks at Father Lonigan and says, because Father Lonigan is saying, yeah, all of this stuff happened. And he says to Father Lonigan, well, Father, no offense, but did you see any of this happen?
Oh my God.
Dare you say that to that blind ass priest? No offense, Father, but did you see?
The absolute worst way.
Did you see any of this happen? But Pilar steps up and is like, I did. I was here. My eyes work just fine. But anyway, we're gonna gloss over that for a moment. We'll come back to magic. Eve takes Grace upstairs because Grace is upset. She finds out that Charity's been dragged to hell. She's like losing her shit. She's like, what the fuck? And she blames Sam. She's like, I lost 2 kids today because of you. Ooh, yikes. She's like, if you had let me come home earlier like I wanted to, maybe I could have gotten here. Maybe I could have done something, which is, I mean, true. She did cause that fucking earthquake at the hospital when she cursed Ivy. So she probably has some like strong powers. I mean, we've been told by Tabitha that they're curse powers, but maybe she could have cursed the demons or something. I don't, maybe she could have done something and to help and change the outcome. And that's how she feels. She's like, this is your fault, Sam, which at this point, everything's going to be Sam's fault. It does not matter. Like if she could go into the kitchen and they could be out of Coke and she would be like, this is Sam's fault. Like she could...
about Ivy.
What?
He was too busy thinking about Ivy to pick up more Coke. Yeah.
Yeah, we're out of milk because of you. So anyway, Eve takes Grace upstairs to sedate her.
Naturally. It's what Eve does best.
I love Eve. No, I don't think she actually sedates her, but she's like, we need to calm you down, but she was headed for that medical bag she was headed for the drugs. And she takes her upstairs and they talk about Sam's secret. And then I think in an attempt to soften Grace's heart towards Sam, which this is not the right time. Everybody needs to give Grace a beat. Everybody needs to give Grace some space. Grace needs space. But in an attempt to kind of, I think, soften her towards Sam, Eve tells Grace her biggest secret in life, that she had an affair with Julian Crane. And says, that's a secret I'm keeping from my partner. Because I think Grace asks, Sam did this and he's so awful. And she says, well, would you ever keep a secret from TC? And Eve's like, yeah, well, actually, I am keeping this enormous secret. I had an affair with Julian Crane, and I could never tell TC that. And then it also comes out that she also had a baby, because Grace is like, well, that's different because you and Julian didn't have a baby. So then she tells her, actually, we did have a baby, but the baby died. So then they cry about losing their babies. It was sad.
It was very sad.
Yeah, it was a beautiful theatrical moment. Like it was in this show that is so often campy and ridiculous and like completely absurd. It was a really beautiful moment of these 2 women who have gone through like trauma bonding, basically, like who've gone through these similar traumas, who are best friends and love each other. And the 2 of them trying to support each other through these like really horrible events in their lives. And it was really, really well written and very well acted. Grace, Eve, they both did beautiful work in this scene. Again, oftentimes the acting in this show is kind of like, oh my God, because of the subject matter. The subject matter is so over the top that like you have to act it kind of crazy, I think. But this was a really nice moment between the 2 of them, albeit a very sad moment.
Oh, for sure. I will say, and I don't want to like I don't want to harp on that too much because it was a beautiful scene. But if I was Eve, I don't know if I would have picked that moment because it's kind of like, Grace is pissed at Sam for keeping that secret from his spouse. And it's like, that she's going to try to convince you to tell TC about your secret because you don't want your marriage to fall apart, just like Grace's is happening right now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This was a poor choice for Eve. I never secrets like that. You tell no one. Nobody needs to know it. Secret, like if you really want to keep something a secret, you can't tell anybody. I don't care how much you love them. I don't care how much you trust them. You can't tell anyone those things. And first of all, the timing of this, I understand where she was coming from and why she did it, but the timing is poor in my opinion. I feel like she should have at least given Grace like a week before she tried to get her to kind of forgive Sam, because this was all about her trying to get her to forgive Sam like immediately. Give me some time to process this shit. Grace has a ton to process right now, so much, and nobody's giving her the space to do it. But like you said, Eve this wasn't the right time to tell her this. But she did it, and then they cry and they have a sweet moment. But like you said, Grace immediately is like, well, you have to tell him. Because she's looking at it from the perspective of the spouse who's being made a fool of, her words.
Yeah.
She said, my husband made a fool of me for 20 years, basically. And I've asked him over and over again about his girlfriends, his first love, and he just tells me it doesn't matter. And so she tries to get Eve to tell TC, and Eve says, well, TC wouldn't understand. And that's when TC walks in the room. TC always walks into a room and right when someone's saying TC wouldn't understand. And he always hears it. And he's like, what wouldn't I understand, honey? You can tell me anything. And then she just covers it. Eve is such a great liar. She's such a good liar. She does it so effortlessly. I mean, honestly, if I was Grace as her friend, like watching her lie like that, I would be like, ugh, I don't know if that's a quality I like about you. Yeah. So she lies and says, Grace and I were just talking about losing a baby and how it takes a woman to understand how painful that might be. So I was just saying you would never understand like that, anything like that, because you're a man. And he buys it. See, it was a good lie. Honestly.
Oh, yeah. No.
Effortless.
Yep. You're not gonna ask any follow-up questions on that. No.
So yeah, let me see. Yeah, basically TC leaves and Grace keeps telling Eve that she needs to tell TC the truth. And Eve is like, no, I can't do that. You've seen his temper. If it was anybody other than Julian, then maybe I would. But the fact that it's Julian Crane, it's just not going to happen. He would kill Julian. And I don't think she makes this point, but this is the point I would have made to Grace, which is my husband would kill Julian, and then would you have my children be fatherless? Right?
Yeah.
Like, think about my kids. That's what I feel like. I feel like Grace really would have responded to that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but she didn't say that.
In TC, he's just, he has that temper. And so it's like, it could be putting, Eve and the daughter's safety in jeopardy, depending on how the secret comes out and what his response to it might be, getting caught in the crossfires. And so, but you can tell that the show's written by a bunch of old dudes, so that never crossed their minds at all. But yeah.
Yeah. So, this woman, Eve, no, Grace, it continues to try to get Eve to tell TC the truth, to try to convince her that she needs to tell TC the truth. And she tells her secrets like this always come out one way or the other. Sooner or later, secrets like this will come out. And you want it to be sooner rather than later, I think. And she says, like, look at how it came out with me and Sam, and Ivy and Sam. And then Eve says to her, well, my baby died, so there's no child that's going to come out of the woodwork, and there's no one knows about this but me, Julian, and you. So, and Ivy, she should really remember that Ivy knows about it. That's really important. But she says, there's no kid. So, there's no chance of some. She's like, there's no chance of what happened to you happening to me.
Yes.
But Grace makes an excellent point, which she says, well, what about Charity? Remember when Charity was having those visions of you and Julian in compromising positions? Like, she's able to see maybe she's able to see the past the way I'm able to kind of see the future.
Oh no.
Says, well, no offense to you and like your beliefs, but I don't really believe in that kind of stuff. But girl, how could Charity, a 16-year-old girl, know about something that happened between you and Julian 20 years ago, and that you've never spoken of to anyone?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like more than a coincidence. It's more than a coinky dink.
Especially with the bird statue, right? Like, Charity is drawn to that thing, and it's like, that has to be burned.
Oh, I hated that bird statue. I don't even know where it is at this point, but I don't even care anymore.
No,
I don't even remember what happened to it.
When I was a kid, I enjoyed the story, but like watching it back, it just kind of it was kind of the sisterhood of the traveling pants. Right?
Yeah. That's exactly what it was, but less enjoyable. I love the sisterhood of traveling pants. But anyway, so let's move on to Eve goes to the book cafe, and she runs into Julian there because Julian actually sees her there and decides to bother her. And she tells him, they basically kind of talk about like their past a little bit. She's telling him, like, leave me alone. You've already caused me so much unspeakable pain. There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about the son that we lost. And then he has like a little tender moment. He says, well, I've lost two sons. I lost our child and Ethan. And he says, but the Cranes don't waste tears over things they can't change. Well, and then I feel like Eve kind of softens towards him because recently we find out that Eve used to be truly in love with Julian. And this is like, and which was like news to Julian, right? And so he like brings that up, what you told me that you once loved me, and that's, kind of news to me, blah, blah, blah. And so she's feeling a little, I think she's feeling some kind of feelings for Julian right here. Because when he says he's lost two sons, I think she feels sympathy for him, right? That we haven't seen her have for him. And she says to him, our son may be gone, but Ethan's not. Ethan's still here, and he's still the son that you raised into a wonderful young man. And Julian says, and I quote, Bennett's bastard means nothing to me. That was horrible.
And it sucks because, they make Julian so evil, so villainy, and then they humanize him for like 5 minutes, and then it's back to the same old, and it's like, I want to be able to see where Eve was coming from about that sympathy, and about, I want to be able to see what made Eve fall in love with Julian all those years ago. But they're, one step forward, two steps back, it seems like.
I think Julian is, of the characters on this show, I think Julian might be the one that's the most complicated. Yes. I really do, because he is you can see he has human moments, and but it's almost like he wrestles to be as monstrous as possible. Like he wants that validation from his father so badly that he's willing to say the most heinous things about that I don't think he believes. I don't believe for 1 second that Ethan means nothing to him anymore after just a few hours of him, no longer being a Crane, but he has to say it because if he doesn't, then I think he doesn't want to get caught up in his own emotions and feelings because it will make it seem like he's weak. You know? Oh, Julian's so complicated. I have such a complicated relationship with Julian Crane. I really do. Especially like the more things we learn about his history, it's just like, oh God, Alex is so shitty.
Yeah, it would be so much. It's so much easier to hate him on the first watch, but when it's like when you know what you know, when you're rewatching it back, it's like, oh my gosh, you're so bad. But this is so much more nuanced than we're seeing so far.
Also watching it as an adult and understanding like family trauma and how your parents can really do such enormous damage to you and how they can mold you into being this horrible person, just because you did this, you became this person to survive with your parent. And so anyway, I'm not gonna keep harping on how much I feel for Julian, even though I really shouldn't. So he says Bennett's bastard means nothing to me. He says he's not a Crane, and this shocks Eve back into, oh yeah, this isn't the man I fell in love with. This is some shell of a man who I once knew, basically. And so she tells him, you really are fucking awful, but you didn't used to be, and maybe one day you can get back to the man you once were. And Julian says, back then I didn't care about my duties to my family, to the Crane family, and that's the difference now. So whatever. Later, let's just go on, because Julian changed the subject to breaking up Shuise, and he basically tries to blackmail Eve, botches this completely. He tries to blackmail Eve into helping him again to break up Shuise, and it fully backfires. She says she won't help because he says to her, I have all these secrets about you. I know all these things about you. You don't want these things coming out. And she says, yeah, you're involved in all my fucking secrets. You don't want them coming out either. So no, I'm not going to help you. It was great. It was great. She was like, you don't want this shit coming out either. So like, stop bluffing, dude. Leave me alone. But do you have anything? Oh, there's one thing we need to finish up with Sam and Grace back at their house. So Grace, later, Sam and Grace like have an argument. Grace is like looking through old baby clothes. And she's, just feeling real nostalgic, was really looking forward to having another baby and everything. They have a big argument, a blow up, because he wants her to talk to him and she doesn't want to talk to him. And eventually Jessica comes in and tells them to stop fighting. She's like, can you please just stop? And tells them they need to be supporting each other instead of fighting. Sam walks her downstairs, and when he comes back, he tries to comfort Grace, but she's grieving, and she's showing him all these baby clothes, and then talks about Ethan as a baby. And it's like, don't you wish you had been there for Ethan as a baby? Don't you miss that? Aren't you upset that you missed that and all of this? Things at a certain point, Grace just starts getting more and more like worked up to the point that she passes out, but she always passing out. So I'm not too concerned.
No, between her and Charity, it just runs in the family.
It runs in the family. That's just in their blood. It's in their weak, anemic blood. They just pass out. So speaking of weak Charity, let's talk about magic and figure out where the poor girl is. Well, she's in hell, but so let's start at the top of this. Charity is like hanging on to that ladder of Lucifer, the Lucifer's ladder. If you recall, she was like dangling from that Lucifer's ladder in hell. And she's yelling for help from Miguel. And then Jessica's like, she has a bright idea. She's like, why don't we I don't know, just go upstairs, unhook the ladder from the bed that has been tied to, and then she'll just fall through the hole in the ceiling. And Father Lonigan is like, "You're using earthly logic." He's like, "Those are the laws. The laws of physics do not pertain to the laws of hell." And like, if we let go of the ladder, she's just gonna go deeper into hell. It's not gonna work. Meanwhile, Hecuba's upstairs sawing away at that
Yeah,
rope.
using a little handsaw for the rope.
She's a witch. Zap it, bitch. I
Like,
don't
oh,
understand
yeah,
this.
use damn powers. Like, what the heck are you doing?
You conjured hell in this house. You can't untie a knot.
Yeah. But also, here's my thing. I know that it's probably just a logistical thing for production, but like, why is hell like facing like up towards the second floor instead of beneath all of them? Why aren't they looking down into hell instead of looking up into hell? And
I
anyway,
get, like you said, it's like the shooting logistically. I guess it's because she went into hell in that upstairs closet. And so hell started seeping through in the house. Kind of like
okay,
if you have a leak, right? And I think that's what happened up there is like the hell started seeping through from her closet, from the
the rest of
closet, the
them.
floor of her closet. And that's why they have to look up to see hell. It's cool to me. Like it's kind of interesting that I mean all of the hell stuff is just so bad but good, like bad in the best way possible. The demons, the bad fire. It's also good. This rope ladder that's supposed to be magic, Lucifer's ladder. It's so good. Anyway, uh, so Hecuba's sawing away at this rope. They're downstairs trying to get Charity. Miguel, I think, is like trying to get her. Does he? I think he reaches her and is like pulling on her to try and pull her through the hole. But Hecuba manages to cut through that rope and Charity is dragged to hell. The hole closes up. That's when Grace and Sam get to the house, realize what's going on. And that's when they ask, "What the hell is going on here?" And Father Lonigan says, "Hell happened in here." My favorite. Uh so Grace demands to know what the hell happened to Charity, where she is. Jessica screams that she's in hell. Sam is like, "I find this so hard to believe." The skeptics. Y'all's house, the walls in this house were bleeding. You were attacked by an unkindness of an unkindness of ravens and a murder of crows in your home. Didn't attack any other houses. Yeah. I mean, and every human in this room is telling you hell opened up in here and took Charity. And there's a lot of people in here. It's Jessica, Reese, Pilar, Father Lonigan, Miguel, and Kay, right? Simone's not
Especially between
there.
Father Lonigan and Pilar. I mean, if you can't trust what either of those two people are saying, then like,
Well, and then that's when TC comes in and is like, "No offense, Father, but did you did you see? Did you see? Oh, TC ain't shit. I can't. That's hilarious. Like, and it's so rude and so awful. And
God, it really is.
no offense, Father, but did you
Like,
see all of this?
it is so much like, you know, a skeptic or like whatever to just be like, oh, I've run out of reasonable, things. So I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know what I'm saying, but
yeah. So, uh, Grace, is all super upset. Eve takes her upstairs. We do all the marriage stuff that we just talked about. Meanwhile, uh, Father Lonigan tells everyone that evil is still very nearby. And then Hecuba, we hear Hecuba like laughing, cackling, laughing, and they're like, I think Jessica says, "What is that awful sound?" And Father Lonigan says, "Evil is making its presence known. Evil is here." And she continues to like laugh, ha 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 ha. And then at one point, this was my favorite. She's like, "That's right. The queen of evil is here." And she's like, "I'm going to go back to my cave and, watch Charity burn in hell." And then she says, "Hasta la vista, losers." was so good. Oh, it was so good. Hasta la vista, losers. Ah, what a fucking great line for this
An icon.
2,000-year-old witch or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so 2001. Hasta la vista, losers.
Really.
Oh, so good. Ah. But yeah, she goes back to her cave, and everybody
We
is.
get a Buffy reference though.
We do. She goes to her cave and watches Buffy the Vampire. Because there's so much like cross um promotion, I feel like, on NBC. Well, at this time on NBC there was a lot of cross promotion, and so there's like and they talk about Buffy a lot in this show.
Yeah.
There
But
was
actually,
one
we also talked about Passions too.
Yeah, well, there was one month where there was literally like a giant Buffy the Vampire poster in like every shot that Kay and Miguel were in. Like,
Oh gosh.
yeah. But anyway, she goes back to her cave. Meanwhile, Father Lonigan's telling them that they have to regroup and wait for evil to make its next move before they can try and rescue Charity, which upsets Miguel greatly. He's like, no, I gotta do some shit right now. And then then Reese is like, oh, look, guys, on my Palm Pilot, I found the way to save Charity. I found the way to rescue Charity. And he says that the person who loves Charity the most has to go to the evil that has trapped her and has to destroy it. So he has to find the witch's lair and destroy it. And if he fails, he and Charity both will spend eternity in hell. So stakes are pretty high here, people. Stakes are hella high. So everyone kind of looks at Kay because they're like, well, we don't know where the evil's lair is. Do you know, Kay? And Kay reluctantly tells them what she knows. She's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the evil lives in that mine shaft, in the caves in the mine shaft that we got trapped in that time. At which point, Reese is really not doing it for me right now. No. Reese says, well, wait a minute. We all came to the most logical conclusion that everything you all saw in the caves and in the mine shaft was a mass hallucination caused by a gas leak. Sir, look at what we're doing here. Look at what has happened here today. Shut the fuck up, please. Kindly shut the fuck up, Reese. But Kay's like, well, all I know is that's where I think the evil's lair is. That's where I saw that witch. That's where, and so Miguel's like ready to jump into action. Father Lonigan tells him it's too dangerous. You need to wait. We need to wait till we can like something again about some like historical documents, ancient documents from the Vatican. Some nonsense, because I'm with Miguel at this point. Just go to the lair, and why don't we just form a search group and go out there, right? Why don't we all go out and look for Charity at the caves? But anyway, he ends up sneaking out because nobody wants him to go look for Charity, especially his mom, which I totally understand. This boy has been through some shit. But he sneaks out, goes to find the lair, but also guess who else sneaks out? Kay sneaks out, and she actually sneaks out before Miguel. She gets to the mine shafts before he does, but they meet up at the mine shafts, and he's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, well, I'm here to save Charity. She says, I would do anything for you, Miguel. Oh, and Charity too. And they have a little back and forth, but eventually she's like, it doesn't matter, I'm coming with you. Like, you can't go down there by yourself, I'm coming with you. So they go down into the mine shaft, and they look around to try and find Hecuba, and Hecuba's downstairs throwing herself a victory party, and she zaps Tabitha and Timmy into the cave. Like she teleported them from their home to the outskirts of town to this cave, but she couldn't untie the rope with some magic. She had to manually saw it. But anyway, she zaps them into the cave because she's throwing herself a little victory party. She's like, I finally did it. Fuck you. You couldn't do this, but I did it. And Timmy tells her, you know, I wouldn't be so sure. I feel like you're counting your chickens before they hatch. We've thought Charity was gone many times, but Miguel's love always brings her back. And that's when Hecuba notices that Kay and Miguel are in the mines or whatever. And so she basically sets a trap. She's like, well, I'm going to kill Miguel. But Timmy tells her that she should let Charity and Miguel see each other one last time before they die. Like, it's just the least you could do. And Hecuba is like, yeah, actually, you know what, you're right. But not for the reasons that Timmy is thinking. He's like, it's just they deserve to see each other. And Hecuba's like, yeah, that'll be real painful. She's like, that'll really hurt. So Hecuba causes a cave-in. When she notices Kay and Miguel, she causes a cave-in to try and kill Miguel. And Miguel gets covered up in rocks. Like, he is dead. Miguel's dead. But then she basically brings him back to life because he's a zombie. Miguel's a zombie and has been for a very long time. But she could, because Timmy tells her, well, you should let them see each other one last time. So she brings him back to life, and then he hears Charity screaming for help. He runs to find her, but he runs into a maze of mirrors. And every mirror has an image of Charity inside, screaming and struggling for help. And so he's looking for Charity. And then when he finally finds her, he goes through the maze and he finds her. Then a portal to hell opens up. So that's kind of where we leave it with them. Do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, it's, it was a week of recap, but some things did happen. I think it was more setting the tone for what this long day is going to entail.
Yeah. All right, so that is the show, everybody. Remember, you can always catch me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Just search Passions Podcast because the @ is different on everything now. I mean, it's the same. They're all the same accounts, but the @ are different from account to account. You can send me an email, passionspodcast@gmail.com. And again, check out the Patreon. But I think that's it, right? Nothing else.
No, that's
where
great.
Where can they find you, Stephen?
Yeah, check out my newsletter, theblueprint902.substack.com.
All right. And with that, you are my passion for life.